picture of everyday life. So I'm not it's true, is analog, medium format, and large format, and that come the performative element. So I'm not asking them to perform in terms of movement of their body, but I'm asking them to perform as humans, like to be themselves. Because these guys, they always didn't, and so suddenly the picture, it becomes quiet. Because these guys, they always need to perform in society. They always need to fit in. They're always performing when they are out there, and so I'm asking them, be yourself. Don't perform anymore. Be yourself, because who you are is just right. So again, yeah. So this is the premises of the project, and it's my family. So I started to ask myself, what does it mean to be an Italian? I say quickly again, my grandmother is from Colombia. On my mom's side, my grandmother on my father's side, she's from Slovenia, and I was born in Sicily, grew up in the north. So I had this mixture of cultures and looks in my family. They were quite different, but yet were just coexisting with each other. And so that was my starting point, to try to analyze and understand the reason why Italy is struggling to accept multicultural society as an added value, but also to accept its own multicultural background, because Italy, as we know it, is a young country, and its unification happened 170 years ago, more or less. And before that, Italy was divided. So you had the Duchess of Venice, then you had the two Sicily reign. So you had this. It was just divided, and so it goes without saying that it's a country with a multicultural heritage in it. And so I started from a family background, so I was just going through archival material, and here you can see where I was born in Sicily, my family, as here my grandma, and then I just started my research by try to understand how the fascist regime and ideology has molded and modified our way of thinking, and see Italians, and see what does it look like an Italian. And I started to study fascist history, because is an element that is unfortunately is still present in Italy, and it's not good to say, and it's painful to say, but I think is necessary to say, is really much embedded in our culture, because we never faced it as a society. We never really kind of had a public debate of what happened, and we never really faced it. And so the interesting thing is that has been put after the war, the Second World War, has been put in the margins, the same as the people I'm portraying in the story I'm talking about. And this is where the project takes its own shape. So I'm kind of studying these topics by exploring the margins. Margins meaning what what the Italian state hasn't included in their mainstream narration from the unification up to these days. And so here starts my research. This is, for instance, as you can see, this is a school notebook from Tutti Giorgio. I found it in this fascist restaurant in Italy, in the north of Italy, and the owner gave it to me. And in here was quite yeah, quite shocking to see how people were educated in those days. And we're talking about people that now have my father age, right? And so people that are well formed as human being. And in at the time, the school was just writing down Mussolini speeches and repeating them and learning them by heart. So that was education. And for me, it was really much important to understand these things, to kind of go through the layers of a complicated situation that we are facing now in Italy and try to understand more. So for me, it's really much important through my work to raise more questions than actually give answers. And for me, it was really much important to study the margins. Why? Because I think that within the margins there are several oppressed categories, and I've made mine. I think that I hope to say correctly in English is intersectionality approach, which is a methodology born from Afro-American feminism movement in the 70s, and is a theory that basically wants to study all the marginal groups in their overlapping and intertwining society more than take them as a separate entities. And so then the research goes on, and I started to see how Italian society. So the research started to happen, and I soon realized that it was not only about fascism and about the narrative that happened from there on, but also what happened before it. So I started I learned that the first colonies happened in the 1890s, so at the end of the past century, with social government, so from a government from the left, and that colonizes first Eritrea and Abyssinia, that then became Eritrea and Ethiopia. And so I started to study this and see how images play a fundamental role in the propaganda. And so how eventually images were used as an act of exclusion. So it was basically, the images became a performative act of exclusion, and also an element to define a narrative. So we have here a manifesto from the fascist time. He is depicting an American soldier. Not here he's depicting an African person. I think this was for the Ethiopian campaign, and he says like, protect her. She could be your mother, your wife, your sister, or your daughter, and with also a really this kind of imagery which is not really reflecting how a Mediterranean person looks like. So he's already there. A transformation of the image of a Mediterranean person into what can be defined a white person. And there is a really interesting study done by Italo-American person, the scholar, which I forgot the name, but the essay is called Are Italian White? That goes through all let's say the process that Italians had to do to obtain the white status in America, and the status that they obtained in the 90s. Because before, that was an interesting story. When I did some research about my mom's surname, she's Lepardo, which is a surname that doesn't exist. So my great grandfather was orphan, and in Italy they used to be called NN. I don't know how can I translate it, but like we can say like nobody's son or nobody's child, and it was given to them the name as a surname, the name of the place where they were found. So happens to be Lepanto, which is a small village in the Messina district, that then when it was transcribed, it became Lepardo. And in Italy, Lepardo are just few. right now, which is basically my family. But there is a huge community in Chicago because a huge amount, I mean, a good part of my family migrated in the 40s and 30s to America. And so it's really easy to find these documents. There is a website on internet, which I forget the name, but you can trace the story of immigrants in America by just typing the surname. And I found some documents that from, I guess, what are my relatives stating that was Italian, was with a race white, complexion dark in the document. And Italians were put in together with Afro Americans in Harlem. So that ghetto was shared by Italians and Afro Americans back in the days. So for me was an interesting story to get to know. It was making me reflect a lot. And there is also a nice book written by Kim Ragusa, she's Afro-Italian, Afro-American Italian. I don't know how to put it. She was born in Ireland by a Afro-descendant mom and Italo-descendant father, and she really wrote a nice novel about it. And so I started to think about the use of images and how marginalized people were represented in Italian society. Here is another example of the Fascist Manifesto here. And this is an advertisement of Ramazzotti, is an Amaro. There was kind of published after the fascist empire. So, and this image can give you the idea of what I'm saying. What I'm talking about, it is being embedded in our culture, in our everyday life. And this is what was going on television in the 60s, 70s, 80s, I guess. This really popular animation in Italy is called Calimero, the Black Chick, and here is where also within the Italian brain there was put the idea and the knowledge of the color black related to dirt, and the white to purity and to purity. And so basically this was an advert in, I think it was in the 70s, if I'm not wrong, but I could be wrong, I don't know. I have it in my notes, where basically they are saying he's saying to her, like, he's looking for the mom, and he is saying to her, but if I was white, would you take me with you? And she says, of course, I can take you with me. And then it shows up this a stereotype woman from the mountain, like it looks like Heidi, like this Swiss type of looking person. That again is a mystification of how a Mediterranean should look like. That says to this black chick, "Oh, but you're not black, you're just dirty." And so she puts it in the water, and he comes back out clean, and is an advert of cleaning powder for a washing machine or for cleaning clothes. And so I started to really much researching and studies on these visuals that were kind of, in our everyday life. And when I showed it to my grandmother, she couldn't believe that. She didn't do this connection as much as she was into this culture. And here again, other research about the South, because the South has always been seen as a internal colony. And this is one of the main newspapers in Italy, and he says that it's from the 72, and he says that the differences between the North and the South will be solved in 2020. Well, we are in 2023 now, and nothing changed much. And then I've studied how in literature, of course, Carlo Levi, he analyzes contemporary Italian identity constructed on the racial otherness of the people from the south, and the definition of southern Italy as a part of the Africa territory on the edge of Europe, and the representation of the black body, especially of women. This was like is what can be seen in America as black exploitation, and in Italy was happening really much in the 70s and 80s. This is a poster of a famous cinematographer, Luigi Scattini, and this is a really famous movie, La ragazza della pelle di luna. We can translate it as the woman with moon skin, if she gives the idea. And the representation of the black woman was just this hypersexualized being that the script was this one. There was the Italian man with the classical family that somehow meets this hypersexualized black woman. He gets mesmerized by her, and he forgets the family, and he's just fell in love with this woman that becomes a symbol of kind of how do you call it, like family destroyer, if it makes sense. I don't know if it's a right definition of it, but it gave a really specific point of view of how Italians look at the black body. And here is at my pictures, and which is, as I said, an exploration of the margins, and mainly the places in the north where I grew up, and the community that I was part of, and then and now the next generation. So vast majority of my friends now that don't live in Italy anymore, and so now I'm dealing with their siblings or friends of their siblings, and so like all people that somehow was close to me. So I started from this picture, which is social housing in Italy, and is where my grandfather first lived in the north, right here. Of course, it's being restored a bit, but this is social housing establishment in the north of Italy, and then of course my project carries on with portraits, and probably this one is I think is the most is the most known picture of the series, and this is they're good friend of mine, and this picture came after a 5 years relationship, like me 5 years me photographing them. I'm quite slow in my process, especially when it comes to portraiture, especially when it comes to represent the other. I'm really aware about I'm really aware about the meaning of representation, and ask myself a lot of questions. So but I really wanted to kind of, and then for me this one was a really risky picture for these reasons. But I really wanted to kind of invert the narrative and find softness and vulnerability in this couple, and try to destroy both stereotypes. And while I will always thank them, because they really open up to the fullest, and yeah, they're being amazing with me, with sharing their story and their love, but most of all their vulnerability. And here some detail, and it is a bit of the metaphor I'm using in the product. There is the second generations, and mostly units, the landscapes and the details. Landscapes and details are they function as a metaphor of this ideology that we think we kind of went beyond that, but is still present, is still really much embedded in our culture, and you can see it from references to the concept of empire here, but also.
So what made you what you kind of you started in that research and stuff like that, and
Yeah.
what inspired you to go in that direction? You said you're looking at the margins per se, and how did that dictate the images themselves? So what I can kind of see your research. Research is really, really important to you.
Yeah, it's fundamental because I need to be able to know how to talk about things, because otherwise it's sensitive topics, and you don't really want to make mistakes when you talk about them, especially when you start from a personal point of view, from your family. So there, you don't want to say wrong things about your family either, but then it's more my responsibility with my own thing. But when you introduce in your works other people, it becomes a bit trickier, I think, and so it took me time, because this project I started it when I started Scribania, but I wasn't feel ready for this yet at the time, and it came like from the need to really, I don't know, I was shocked how far behind Italian society was, and that awareness happened just by living abroad, with all the issues that Holland has and all the things going on in there as well. Their level of awareness on these topics is like, is pretty much way more developed than in Italy. In Italy, it's starting as being 10, 15 years where things are moving, especially in the literature. You have fantastic writers of second generations and so forth. I mean, I can name few, like one of them I think is Ijaba Shego. She's great. But in terms of visual, it's a bit still far behind. And if you also see, and I started to notice this thing, like when I was coming back home, there was like also what you see in television, like in the news. Okay, when the news there is, I don't know, they talk about someone made some violence on a girl, or someone selling drugs, or someone committing some crime, and there is no there is no like and it hasn't been identified the person committed the specific crime. There is always the image of a park and of a black person taken from far away, riding a bicycle or walking toward an alley, or this kind of stuff. Always. And you want it or not, by displaying that, you just create a fixed image to the people you are talking to, which is, in this case, when it comes of news, is Italians. And so I really felt the need to kind of give a turn to this narrative, because is precluding the what is I consider the real progress, because us as a country, we're still in the 50s mentally, and so we have to do it. I think is just fundamental, and we have to do it right now, because what I think is what is being marginalized now is what forms Italian identity. It is also like as simple it's as simple as that. If you see the statistics, I think that Italy is one of the oldest countries in the world. If not the oldest, it goes in the top 3. And the rate of birth is just like to the minimum. Over the past 20 years, the new Italians are the second generations. So the people who contributed to the repopulation of a really old country were immigrants. And now we are already at the third, fourth generation. So they must be considered Italian. That is where the strength of your country is coming from right now. and is a fantastic strength because is a melting pot of cultures. And me, as my personal experience, differences and different cultures cannot be an issue. It's only an issue when you try to explain to someone who thinks that have a fixed path in his life, because it can get like you fitting in more shoes. But you personally, when you deal with it, most of the time, at least in my case, is kind of organic. You can move organically, and I think is something that is an added value for a country, and I think is time for Italy to face, first of all, to face its own past, because it's a country that doesn't not to be a post-colonial country, meaning that it's not fully aware of the colonial past the country had, and
so as you flip through these, I can kind of see you thinking through these ideas, and you're kind of confronting not only yourself, but you're also confronting the society you're coming back to. I really relate to that a lot. You know, having lived abroad and still live abroad, when I go back, I feel like I'm a foreigner there. You know, I don't feel the same as I once did before. You know, I have a broader perspective, and so this series is you reflecting on that.
Yeah, I do that, but most importantly, I reflect on how important it is to face our past. We never did, and so it must be a time in which you acknowledge certain things that they can be painful, and they are painful, but it's okay. I mean, you did some worse to other people, so it just, get a bit of awareness of what happened in the past. It's painful. You might need to rebuild a bit some of your values, but I think is a process that needs to be done. Absolutely, but not only for Italian identity per se, but also to understand your own roots. For instance, then we talk about it perhaps later, but Sclavanie, you asked me before the reason why when he was, I think he won the Urbanautica award was with another name, or perhaps the contribution was with another name, but when I actually applied for the award was Sclavanie. It was because the original title was Beyond the Land of Castles, which is how these lands are called too. But Sclavanie is a term that in Fluran indicates in a derogatory way people with Slovenian roots. And most of the people with Slovenian roots are the ones living in mountain villages bordering with Slovenia. And people, they just call them in this derogatory way. And it's a really bad term. This term is how these lands were called back in the days. So it was just a word that used to indicate a frontier, and most of the time the people that use it are people with an Italianized surname, because what happened during the fascist period, in 1938, Mussolini did the racial laws, and so the people with a multicultural background, meaning born in Slovenia, but then that part of land became Italy after the First World War, were obliged to choose whether to be Italian or not. The ones that chose, for instance, like my grandmother, to be part of Italy, they got their surname Italianized. So her, from Grimac, it became Grimat. So with a Z rather than G8. They didn't have a lot of fantasy at the time, but So when you forget your history and your past, you don't even understand, what you are saying, because you have a Italianized surname. So if you do some research, you soon find out that perhaps you have part of yourself that are unknown to you. And so then suddenly you can call in a derogatory way people that share the same cultural background as you do. The difference is that you are not aware of it, and they are. But for some weird reason, and there it goes back the theory of subalternity from Gramsci, you think that you are superior than them. And so it is a really complex mechanism that needs to be faced, I think, sooner or later in Italy. And that's the reaon why I did Sclavanie first. I'm doing this one, and I guess my research will carry on these themes. Yeah.
So keep flipping through some of these images, and I don't know if we're going to have enough time to jump into that previous work that I had mentioned before that won the awards at Urbanotica. I'm kind of curious where your research is going and what you're working on now. But I want you to kind of wrap up these images, kind of talk through some of these images, and then we'll slide over to some of the current things you're doing. So keep flipping through these and talking through these, and then we'll I have a few more questions, and we'll transition to that other set of images.
Yeah,
your other research.
Well, this is a more selection. It's more selection. This is how it's been presented in Fotografia Europea. As you can see here, it comes back what I was saying before, the different layers in the story. So you have the wallpapers that are basically giving context to the whole work, and then you have the protagonists that are this new generation, and then you have the archival material that is really much important to connect the past with the present and give that extra layer that renders the story more complicated yet easier to understand, if it makes sense. I know that this sounds a bit of a contradiction, but I think that is, for this kind of story, is needed, and here is how I use it. So this is archival material. Here is the notebook, fascist propaganda, and here is the images of my family back in Sicily, back in this is all in Sicily, not in Colombia. So that is how.
Oh, it's important to you to have your archival research and your current images to have a conversation. So it's really important for you to do that.
Yeah, I find it really fundamental, because is a dialogue. No, it's a dialogue that you create between visuals, and as I said before, like an image that was taken 60 or 70 years ago now gets a new meaning, and perhaps has more of the photographer who took it and the society it was coming from than the image itself. So it's really much important to use them. And in the case of Italians, the images that they took in the colony, or the images used by the propaganda, have a really clear meaning and purpose that I don't think it needs any word to be explained. They're quite literal, and so I think it's really much important to use them in combination with the picture I take that is picture of everyday life. So I'm not it's true, is analog, medium format, and large format, and that comes the performative element. So I'm not asking them to perform in terms of movement of their body, but I'm asking them to perform as humans, like to be themselves. Because these guys, and so suddenly the picture, it becomes quiet. Because these guys, they always need to perform in society. They always need to fit in. They're always performing when they are out there. And so I'm asking them, be yourself. Don't perform anymore. Be yourself, because who you are is just right. And so again, you see, I took from Felipe the performative thing, but I do it in a different way. I do it without showing performance, because the performance is their daily routine. So as a paradox, behave like as they are, it becomes a performative act, which is I think quite interesting and explains a lot of the society we are living in, at least in Italy. Then I can talk only about the things that I know a little, so I cannot say nothing about other country. But in Italy, this is the current situation, which I really feel the urge to change it. To change, I think, is too pretentious. It's not the photographic project that's going to change the world, but definitely like to install a seed in the people who sees the project and starts to question. Just that when you start to question, then it's a mechanism that starts and develops by itself. So that's really much important for me. Yeah.
I think this is a big world conversation. I think a lot of countries and societies are actually having this particular conversation. Who are you hoping sees this? Are you pointing this project at someone, or are you almost like putting a mirror?
I hope schools and youth that they live in this reality and they must feel part of the country. One of the most touching elements of this work, and when I was talking with these guys, is that they do feel Italians, but they are. That's the thing. They are perhaps more than me in some cases, but the society doesn't make them feel as such, because until the age of 18 they are not considered as Italian, and it's just unbelievable if you think that born and raised, third, fourth generation, and they don't have documents, and when you don't have this problem, you don't really think about it. And but then when you're in school, you're a kid, and everybody goes. I don't know. You cannot go on a school trip. It's as simple as that. Why? Because you don't have the documents. You cannot go. You have to go do a different line, whatever, in museum and stuff. Why? Because you have a permit, but you don't have a document. When you're a kid, you don't really think about this stuff, but it creates already a different dynamic within your class, because then suddenly that from seeing you as one of them, they start to ask you about why you always on the side to do this kind of stuff and you're not like us. And it's true, it's not a passport that says that you are from a country or from another one. I mean, I have a Colombian passport. I'm not a Colombian because my surroundings, I have cultural background, so I have some reference, but the country, the form is Italy. So it's not a piece of paper, but that piece of paper can help to not feel excluded. In this case, to people born and raised in Italy. So it's not even like something that you get because of some sort of heritage, because of someone shares some background. And in Italy, this thing is called ius sanguinis, means that your right to be Italian counts by blood, which is an absurd knowledge. So I give you an example. Messi can vote in Italy. Messi can vote in Italy. These guys, when they are 18, have no right to vote in Italy. Not even their parents, they've been living in Italy for 50, 60 years, or God knows for how long. They have no word on kind of contributing to the future of the country. And they are contributing economically to the country. Messi, why? Because his great-grandfathers were Italian. So he has an Italian citizenship. And this to me is absurd. Is absurd. And so somehow this thing needs to change, and I think you can do it. And I think that photography has a really strong power. Like when you learn how to see images and make relations and learn how to read them is countryside. So the animals fall from the city. Is important, because then you force people to question, because I think it's really important, the protest on the street, which is the first kind of element, like the first moment that you shake the things up. But then it cannot be always like this, because it doesn't bring to dialogue. Yeah. One of the few things that brings to dialogue is art, meaning photography, music, sports, things that bring community together. It cannot be always like this. This is fundamental to start it, but then
sure,
it needs dialogue. Is fundamental.
So I get, in a lot of ways, you said this is pointed at schools and these kids and a lot of these, and in a lot of ways I feel like you're saying I see you, I think it's interesting, and I think well, go ahead.
Yeah, it's the education. Everything starts from there, because if I take my school books, how fascism and unification of Italy and these and the colonies and the empire in the south and all these kind of notions are really much explained. We did this, we did that, and we just kind of regret the stuff, but we didn't kill many people. We just had colonies for 30 years, so we are less than Portuguese, Spanish, and Dutch and French and whatever. So, and then we've been also us as Italian, we've been throughout history treated like a lower population in Europe. So things balancing out. That's how it should be told. Things, it shouldn't be kind of explained like that in school. So I think that the education is fundamental, not for my father generation, because that that you can try to install a dialogue, but it's 70, 80 years old people. It's really difficult to change their structure. But it's fundamental the new generation. Not to say that old generation we have to forget about them, but a society relies on new generation, not to the ones who contributed already to the society. So that's I think is my main focus. And then of course, like if he goes around the project within the art world is always good, but is the main focus is I would like to be kind of shared within the educational system in Italy. Then everything that comes after it is just I consider it as a blessing. But the main thing is has to serve as a purpose a bit.